Say hello to travelersan. Through the creative use of game mechanics, and at times glitches, we're on a quest to see just how much of Genshin Impact can be completed using only the Traveler. And we sometimes break things. If you enjoyed the series, do make sure to like and subscribe. It helps travelersan out a lot. Nameless, huh? Well, already took down one nameless foe. No sweat. Honestly, never did this Dreams of Sword Art quest. When reading about it, really thought it'd be a huge pain. This guy's got passive regeneration and he can hit pretty hard. Maybe it's because I'm still world level 0, but outside of some cheap tricks, he didn't put up much of a fight. Things did get weird in the final bout, like when he used Starfell's sword as an excuse to reset the duel, after he'd already gone into his second health bar. The one weakness of Geo-Traveler, accidentally forcing enemies to leave the fight and recover full health. The dude got in a few good wins, so yeah, it took a few tries. Still, I'm a bit surprised travelersan could complete the DPS check in the last fight, without the use of attack boosting food. Although, I had to give him a Berserker state as well, sacrificing his health for the 4-piece Berserker set effect, while also beginning the battle with his health below the threshold for activating the effect. It paid off quite well. With that quest dealt with, let's go ahead and move on to the true final boss. Yep, it was supposed to be Nameless, or I suppose his name's Masanori, but then I found a new quest had become available, Sakura Arborism. And so the Electro Hypostasis is, rather appropriately given its element, the final boss of our Inazuma adventure. This boss isn't particularly difficult to evade, so it's not necessarily a hard-fought battle. However, an issue becomes evident in the final stretch, destroying the Electro Crystals to prevent its recovery. I ran the battle with Geo-Traveler, not expecting it to work all that well, but it actually went pretty darn good. When the boss entered its weakened state, 2 of the crystals would spawn as small clusters that could be destroyed with a single Starfell sword. Surely, if that were the case, the larger one wouldn't take much more. Oh, well, okay, 2 Starfell swords and a burst, which can probably deal 2 instances of damage. That should be enough.
Dust!
Really? It only deals damage once? Look at all those hits. Internal cooldown, such a pain. Geo can't finish the job. With the first Ascension talent that reduces the cooldown of Starfell Sword by 2 seconds, it might be possible, but I'm not yet Adventure rank 15. Electro obviously isn't going to work, so that leaves Anemo. I had thought the boss would fully recover. No, I don't mean its health. I mean the number of crystals that need to be destroyed in its weakened state. It's still just the one from before. Let that tornado rip, hit it with a few palm vortexes, and that is one heck of a close wrap. Just shy of the boss recovering. Alright, Sakura Arborism is done, and battles against the major enemies of Inazuma are, for now, at an end. It's time to move on to the last mission before returning to Mondstadt, C4 Electro. To obtain the 4th constellation, a few more Electroculus need to be gathered. As mentioned in the previous episode, these are the difficult Electroculus. Also, I said it was 80 Electroculus. Apparently, I overlooked 2 real easy ones. This one on the east shore of Amakumo Peak, and this one near Shake Pavilion. That domain unlocked after blasting the cliff wall with one of those cannons from Tatara Tales. So it's actually 6. My bad. Anyways, some of these Electroculus are locked behind thunder barriers that can't be phased through with a level 1 Electrogranum. A few are inside areas only reachable after starting or completing quests that travelersan cannot access, and others still are in the most dangerous place in the game. Now, perhaps you think there's nothing all that dangerous about Amakumo Peak, or to be precise, the ruins beneath its lake. However, this area isn't intended to be explored until after Sarai Storm Chasers is complete, which is one of the many quests that are inaccessible. And it's for a very good reason. The Bale Thunder. If we go down there now, there will be constant damage from Bale Thunder, as well as lightning strikes trying to blast us at every step. This poses so many problems. 1. Will travelersan have enough health to tank the Bale Thunder? 2. If not, and food must be used, can enough of it be eaten before becoming full to outlast the Bale Thunder? 3. What about enemies? If a fight must be had down there, can a single hit be afforded? The answer to all 3 of these questions, absolutely not. Which means we need to be able to move faster, be able to run farther despite limited stamina, be able to toss enemies aside without batting an eye, and a detailed healing regimen that pulls health from artifact passives and a selection of carefully curated food. But let's not tackle all this at once. After all, this was done through trial and error, one step at a time. And for the first step, well, we have to drain the lake. Alrighty, we're on a small detour here to Liyue. Our good buddy Pan here has a gift that'll really come in handy. A free Skyrider sword, thank you kindly. The effect of this gives a 12% boost in movement speed and attack after using an elemental burst. So while it's active, it's basically like having Anima Resonance. I thought it a good idea to start from here. The plan was to run up this hill, sprint lunge off, and then run around the outskirt of the lake to the puzzle itself that will drain it. But nope. Normally, the formula for Bale Thunder damage is 150 plus 1% of the character's max HP. After about 1 minute of exposure, however, that damage triples to 450 plus 3% of max HP. So while I could make it to the puzzle, by the time I did, the Bale Thunder damage would have tripled, and I would get easily comboed by it and the machines. Still, these failed attempts did allow me to notice that the puzzle wasn't resetting when travelersan fell, and in the final run of this round, I managed to deactivate all the panels. I needed a better starting point, and found it in this location here. It's much closer, even if part of it involves running up a mountainside. Oh, and yeah, I also remembered at this point that you can teleport with Electrogranum. That's a good 10 seconds of immunity to Bale Thunder. Not this time, darn jumping robot. Victory, no matter the cost. Oh, wonderful. There is a fight to be had down here, and it's against machines. Going to have to break out the 5-star food for this, which of course means a second detour to Liyue, because the recipe for the only 5-star food in the game, Adeptus Temptation, is located on the floating abode atop Qingyang Peak. And I do wonder how, nearly 2 years into the game, this is still the only 5-star food. Alright, let's go get this delicacy cooked. No ham. All good, all good. Chef Mao's got the hookups. Shoot. I already bought and used them all this week. Detour during the detour to Mondstadt. Sarah's gonna have us covered for sure.
There's the blacksmith!
Yes, Paimon, that is indeed the blacksmith.
Hey, there's a lady over there waving to you.
Paimon, come on.
Let's go and see what she wants.
Stop this.
Look!
Gosh darn it, Paimon, just let me buy my hams! Okay, finally got it. And some food to reduce sprinting stamina consumption. And also nabbed a geopotion to wash it all down. Gotta get every bit of damage I can. These aren't potions? I'm just now finding this out. So, it's an external medicine. Huh, alright. And down we go. There's the pesky machines that have the switch on lockdown. Holy crap. I think there were roids in that food. Once again. Victory. no matter the cost. Now is where things get complicated. The colored door labyrinth of the ruins. I attempted this so many times, and with each attempt, I would realize that I needed to add yet another bullet point to my strategy. Gather around the board, everyone, and pay attention, because the speed run needed to get through this gets pretty ridiculous pretty fast. The problems. 1. The labyrinth is too long. 2. Can't even start at the labyrinth, so add in the distance from the teleport waypoint to the ruins as well. 3. While there are Electrogranum down there, none of them are accessible after entering the labyrinth. 4. Travelersan gets full too fast and can't continue eating to survive. See problem number 1. If this is going to be even remotely possible, every trick from every weapon, artifact set, and food available to me would need to be used. This is the plan I came up with. I needed more HP, so it was time to say farewell to level 7 Travelersan. Being so close to adventure rank 15, it was nearing time to do this anyways, in order to unlock first ascension talents. But that's for another time. Anyways, to get even more health, 2 pieces of the adventurer artifact set would be used for a flat 1000 health boost. Skyrider Sword would continue to be used as it has been. However, unlike before where an elemental burst would be used right at the beginning, it would instead be held. This is because the 4-piece effect on the artifact set Traveling Doctor has the ability to instantly restore 20% of health upon use of an elemental burst, which means I would need to be able to freely switch artifacts. Since that cannot be done while in combat, all enemies within the labyrinth would need to be cleared out before attempting this. Furthermore, the chests spawned by the returning Seelie to their courts were extremely important. Unfortunately, I opened one already, but one still remained. They're important because, with another artifact switched to 4-piece adventurer, opening treasure chests regenerates 30% health over the course of 5 seconds. Food that reduces sprinting stamina would continue to be used. As for healing food, it would require a curated selection, a mix of delicious and suspicious foods, in order to maximize the amount of health gain possible in relation to the fullness formula Genshin uses, which looks something like this. But what's important with food is that we delay hitting max fullness for as long as possible. The fullness meter constantly drains at a rate of 0.3% per second, but when max fullness is reached, the meter gets locked for 30 seconds before it starts draining. Based on this chart from the Genshin fandom wiki, we can see that the fullness values for suspicious variants of food are much lower than normal or delicious. This will let Travelersan squeeze in a few extra bites. So long as he's even just 0.1% away from max fullness, he can eat one final delicious variant for one last push. And last, the penalty for having to run from the waypoint to the ruins needs to be removed from the equation. So Travelersan will need to sit tight around this Electrogranum that's right above the labyrinth's entrance, in order to heal damage taken while entering the ruins, and then wait for the fullness meter to deplete. Got all that? This was my glorious plan, and it's time to put it to the test. Nope, just nope. There's absolutely no way. Even with all that planning, all of that strategizing, the utilization of all those nifty mechanics to get extra health, this labyrinth is just too darn long. And there's probably a good minute to go beyond this point. That's 30 instances of max damage Bale Thunder, which at Travelersan's current health amounts to a staggering 20,592 damage. Sure, I only realized afterwards that I didn't have to wait for the Seelie, but even then, there's still no way. There are machines in the next area too that would just add more damage to the equation. It's not happening. At least not in this super complex, over-the-top way that utilizes a ton of cool game mechanics. When all else fails, back to the tried and true. Let's just break it. This is a method anyone who watched episode 2 will be familiar with. And while it did dawn on me that it would likely be possible to do this, it did not do so until I had already gathered everything needed to try the final run. I would have rather that cool speedrun worked. Instead, we'll need a little help from a test run domain. Yep, just like when breaking into Inazuma, entering this domain grants travelersan some much needed respite. Not only will it reset the damage of Bale Thunder, travelersan's fullness meter will continue to deplete while in this domain. Anyways, with our renewed fullness meter and a reset Bale Thunder damage, the Amakumo Peak Labyrinth is nearly completed. What a close call. And for the third time...
This is not the end.
Victory, no matter the cost. I'm a bit upset that my cool strategy didn't work. It utilized so many different cool game mechanics. Still, I picked up a lot of useful information that may help in the future from looking into it. I guess if there's already a simple, broken solution, don't try to make up another. Which brings us to the next 2 Electroculus on Watatsumi Island. The first is within the moon-bathed deep's Sealed Cavern. In this quest, the barrier is dispelled. Since travelersan cannot do that, he instead has to take a trip out into the strange world below, and clamber on over to the cavern. There should be a treasure chest around here. There, inside the cavern. And there's the Electroculus. Nothing in here can be interacted with. However, to the east, Paimon dialogue will trigger that's part of the quest. Let's nab that chest before moving on. Furniture. Didn't expect that. The second is tucked away beneath the water at Suigetsu Pool, which also houses a domain, Palace-Senate Pool. To get down there, a short puzzle must be completed in order to drain the water. First, grab an Electrogranum and then adjust the direction of these veins. Then just activate them one by one. Oh boy, they've got timers. And Electro Traveler's skill cooldown is a bit too lengthy. I thought up a few ideas on how to tackle this. The first was to use a burst and just attack the elemental monuments. The initial use of the burst can activate monuments, and subsequent attacks afterwards call down lightning, but that lightning doesn't strike when attacking objects. The second involved using an enemy. Lure an enemy over, run to a different monument and use skill, activate the second with the initial hit of elemental burst, attack the enemy near the third to call down lightning, and hit the fourth with another skill. Except, I couldn't get the lightning from the burst to activate the monument, even with an enemy this close. There's a recurring theme in this episode, and I've said it once already. If there's already a simple, broken solution, seriously, I need to stop trying to make an alternative. Can't stop me now, Suigetsu Pool. Can't stop me. Oh, that's a mid-level thunder barrier. But as I was saying, can't stop me now. This one is quite interesting. Let's briefly review the thunder barriers travelersan has dealt with. The first was part of the Electroculus montage in episode 3. This is the thunder barrier that locks out the portal room of the Raiden Shogun boss. Nowadays, that thunder barrier is the lowest level, but before version 2.5, it was actually a mid-level barrier. Should you happen to find another way into the cavern, it will vanish. The second barrier was below Ararumi. This one did not vanish when the room was broken into. 2 thunder barriers, 2 different outcomes. The question, then, is which category does this thunder barrier belong to? Obviously, if we were to get into the room some other way, it wouldn't really matter if the barrier vanished or not. The problem, however, is there doesn't appear to be any way in. Unlike the room in Ararumi, this one is sealed on all sides, even underneath, by solid rock, save for the side blocked by the barrier. But I had a theory. If this indeed is a barrier that will vanish by entering the room, and if I can trick the game into thinking I'm inside the room, then I'll be able to just walk in through the front door. So I made my way over to the room from out of bounds and began walking against the walls of it. No change. But what's this? A suspicious hole in the wall. Gotta climb in and investigate. This space appears to be between the two rooms, one of which has the Electroculus and Thunder Barrier. Listen closely and you'll hear the hum of the barrier. I climbed around a bit, getting as close to the barrier as I could. Let's listen again. The hum is gone. Lo and behold, the barrier had deactivated, and my theory proved true. Take that, sweet Getsu Pool, and your puzzles. While I'm here, may as well unlock the domain. Now the place lives up to its name. Truly a palace in a pool. With this Electroculus, only one more remains. The final one could be simple, if I wanted it to be. I had yet to collect the Electroculus within the arsenal. That's the vault that requires 3 keys in Tatarasuna. But let's go exploring in the fog of Surumi Island. I brought it up at the end of episode 3, but ignored it in episode 4 because I wanted to wait until I gathered all other possible Electroculus. As to why? Because a single mistake in the fog can cost hours of gameplay. If I were to push through the fog, it would require a planned route. A route that would change depending on the number of Electroculus I needed. Turns out, I didn't need to go into the fog, but I'm going to anyways. I don't like to introduce a cool idea and then leave it hanging if I can help it. Let's cue up some mysterious music and let the montage roll. And there it is, the final Electroculus. Well everyone, I think that about wraps up Inazuma. I plan to still visit from time to time, as I'd rather collect what I can now while the Archon quest isn't active, and maybe to battle some bosses. There could still be discoveries lying in wait, so if I find one, I'll be sure to include it in future travelersan videos. And there's Constellation 4. Man, what a journey it's been. The stats speak for themselves. 150 Electroculus gathered, Sacred Sakura Cleansing Ritual, Sakura Arborism, Tatara Tales, Dreams of Sword Art, all completed. Amakumo Peak Ruins looted without dispelling the Bale Thunder. The Golden Wolf Lord defeated. Theories tested, with some proving false, but others proving true. The fact that travelersan made it to Inazuma without the Archon quest to begin with. I really did my best to not let anything stop me. Yet, this is only the beginning. Inazuma may be behind us for the time being, but adventures back in Liyue and Mondstadt, Dragonspine, and eventually the Chasm and Enkanomiya, even Sumeru when it's released, are all calling. One could even say a new storm is brewing. Because, well, I have discovered that a certain game function may be permanently broken for travelersan. As always, thanks so much for the continued support on this adventure. A like, subscribe, share, all help out a ton, so I appreciate it if you consider them. This is Musashi and travelersan signing off. Till next time.